Hello and welcome to Gardening Australia. We have heaps of great stuff to share with you this week, including introducing you to our latest guest presenter. Here's what's coming up.
I've done all sorts of stories from my garden over the years, and in all kinds of weather. But this time, I'm going behind the scenes to show you the big picture, how it all started, how the overall garden is designed, and how it all fits together.
And if you're looking for something that's tough and colourful, will grow in the shade, the answer may well be clivias. And I cannot wait to show you a back garden that is chock-a-block full of them and the gardener that is behind it all.
And it was on this very spot in Show Garden Alley last year that we came across the next of our guest presenters, Carolyn Blackman.
It's one of my favourites because there are so many lessons for people living in really tight spaces.
One of the questions that I get asked a lot is, what is a good plant to grow in the shade? Well, I'm here to meet a gardener who's got the answer. It's a clivia, beautiful and colourful. It really is the reigning queen of the shadows.
Clivias are such a valuable understory plant, and I guess it's really in the last 10 years that I've got a lot more serious about it and started to move into the world of breeding, trying to work on new varieties and refine them.
Peter Heusler is a gardener, plant breeder and unashamedly a clivia obsessive.
Probably some people who'd agree with that. I think a very committed clivia grower, very keen on hybridising new varieties, but there's a degree of obsessiveness there, I'm sure.
There's the big one that everyone knows, the Clivia miniata, the orange one.
Yes, everyone who says, I've already got an orange, and this is what they're talking about.
But look at the range.
Yes, now we've improved the form and the size. So the oranges now, you can get up to 10 centimetres or more. And then, of course, the creams or yellows that we're talking about, huge flowers, some getting towards white. But this is, from what I've seen, about as close as we're getting to white at the moment.
You've got reds, you've got greens, you've got plum colours, tangerines, all sorts.
So these are peaches. There's what we call, I'd put them under the umbrella term of European peaches. And so you get a lot of pink, apricot suffusion, you get the green in them as well. Yes, they're very richly textured.
And then these ones, the absolutely bi-colour.
Yes. Yes, so this is, as you say, the bicolour and the aspiration of pretty well every clivia grower, every second clivia grower, is to push that margin out, enlarge that throat, so you're just getting an edge of colour, a picoté effect. So these, Jane, are the what we call versicolour forms, and these are new hybrids where you get one colour on the outside and another inside. Sometimes it can be very stark, the difference, sometimes more subtle, but they're very attractive. These are the ghosts, as we call them, or watercolours. They're given different names in different countries.
It's the range that's amazing. My eye was caught by this one, and then the exact contrast of a red.
Well, the reds are very elusive. They're probably the hardest. I could breed greens more easily than reds. The red's very elusive, but very striking, and probably the most popular colour. Then we get into bronzes. So that's a green-throated orange, but this is a truer bronze, and these are different shades of bronze. And the one at the end here, where you're getting more pink come through, so you get quite an interesting copper effect.
You have blown me away with your collection. Most people think of the colour of the flowers of the clivias, but really, the interest is also in the foliage.
Yes, indeed. There's a lot more attention being given to this, the variegated forms, but also leaf patterns. And if we look at particularly Japanese and Chinese growers have worked even within the green form of leaf that we're more familiar with, cultivating much broader, shorter forms of leaf, but also this patterning, which is often referred to as painted face. Then, of course, you've got the variegations. So you've got this, which is a longitudinal variegation or striata variegation.
And creamy variation.
Yes, you can get several different colours across the leaf. So it's not just a matter of being green and cream. If you look carefully, you get greys, dark greens. With some variegations, the variegation will actually extend, not just through the leaves, but right up the stem, the flower spike.
Oh, that's amazing.
And right through, if you look very carefully, it's right through into the pedicels here. And then the berries in time will be variegated, or some will be variegated and some will not.
Now I noticed another variegation though. This is a totally different one.
This is something newer in the Australian context, although they've been around here a while. So these are what we call akabono. So you can see here, this one, for instance, that strong yellow, when this flower spike was coming up, it was butter yellow, the buds were butter yellow, and as they broke open, they have a red edge. It's very attractive in its own right. Gradually, as the weather warms, that will become more green, so you get more this sort of patterning.
Clivias like shade, but there's shade and other shade, isn't there?
Yes, absolutely. Clivias will grow in quite deep shade. They may be a bit leggy, but they'll still flower, not as well, but they'll still do that. And yes, you can push the boundaries. In fact, to get the best out of flowering, you do want to push the boundary a bit in terms of light. And I guess what you've got to watch is the sunlight in the autumn and spring will be good, but strong sunlight in the summer is another thing.
Well, Peter certainly knows and loves his clivias, but they're great plants that give a whole lot back to him as well.
Is there a point at which I would produce something and say, that's it, the perfect clivia? I don't think so. I think this is a bit the critic in me. I'm my own best critic, I think. You're always looking to improve.
If you're keen to have a go yourself, propagating clivias is quite easy, and I'll be back later in the program with Peter to show you how.
Just push them in like that. They're not using.
How much sunlight does your veggie garden need? Well, vegetables will grow in a range of light conditions, but they certainly do best in full sun. So when you're siting your vegetable garden, make sure that it's an open aspect, as north-facing as possible. That way you'll get light from early morning to late afternoon.
A really common question is, how far apart should I place plants when I want to grow them as a hedge? Now, I have a basic rule of thumb. I tend to place them out about as far apart as I eventually want the hedge to grow deep. So in this case, coastal rosemary, it'll get anywhere between 1 and 2 metres high and wide. I put it about 75 centimetres apart, and that's how deep I'm going to clip my hedge, and it should join up quickly and get good coverage.
Every year at the end of March, the Australian horticulture industry gathers here at the Carlton Gardens in Melbourne to join in the fun of the Melbourne International Flower and Garden Show, otherwise known as MIFGS to its friends. Here, every new trend in gardening is on display, as well as the perennially popular show gardens. And it was on this very spot in Show Garden Alley last year that we came across the next of our guest presenters, Carolyn Blackman. And this is Carolyn with husband Joby. They're the design team that swept all before it last year, when their show garden won virtually every design award possible, including the prestigious Best in Show award. That was a pretty sensational achievement last year.
Thanks, Costa.
Tell me a little bit more about it.
Oh, look, we really wanted with that garden to show that plants can be the structure in a garden, as well as the beauty and the softness and the colour. And I think that we've seen so many gardens at Garden Show over the years that have become really increasingly built. We sort of thought, let's use some hedging and some structure plants to create the bones of the garden and then fill it in with the softness and the colour, and just dominated by plants, of course. We're very plant-centric.
As well as being able to create award-winning gardens, Carolyn's a lover of plants, a regular on Talkback Radio, and adept at helping others find the right solutions for their own gardens. So who better to do the same for us? What is it that gardens can do for people?
Gardening's very potent, Costa. Not that I'm telling you anything you don't know, but it's potent, and it's a great way of bringing people together and having them feel connected at some level with nature. I've watched people that never had any interest in gardens at all have this whole transformation where they fall in love with the idea of garden and gardening.
This is really a great place to come for inspiration, isn't it?
Oh, look, it is. And you can see so many things. Some take your breath away, showstoppers. some might be a bit too over the top for you, but you might take an idea from it. And other stuff that's really achievable and that you could really have a crack at home.
T-shirts are pretty inspiring.
T-shirts are pretty. Stephen Wells, how are you? Good to see you. And you meet people at MIFGS too. That's the other thing, Costa. Great people at MIFGS. This is one of my favourites because there are so many lessons for people living in really tight spaces. And with our increasing sort of urbanised environment, those spaces are becoming so precious. And this garden's really set about maximising the greenery in a really limited space.
And I mean, the challenge is to get plants to grow in these shady, windy, confined, limited soil environments.
And I just think it's such a great lesson for people to not just go, well, I'm in this limited environment, I can't really garden, because you can garden. We just need to garden in different ways.
They've created like little windows and views, which is how the city is.
It's so true. And it would have just been easier to pave it, probably, but they've shoehorned these plants in there, and it just it feels exuberant, you know,
it does.
And in a space that would otherwise have been a bit dead. The other things that I love about this garden is this little hidden laneway. And just like the laneways of Melbourne, where you've kind of got to get in behind to see what's really going on, or there's these treasures to discover, this mosaic facing this gorgeous little sort of laneway space that's been created, it's something to discover.
When it comes to design, this garden here is really ticking a lot of boxes, isn't it?
It is. There's a thing about gardens, it's hard to explain. They just feel good.
Can you pinpoint from your perspective a couple of those details?
The first one that struck me about this garden is that the plant palette is so soft on the eye. You've got this cohesiveness between the stone, which is obviously this basalt, Victorian basalt, this bluey kind of grey colour, but it's just a wash. The rest of the planting is just a wash with that same colour. So it creates this cohesion and rhythm. So the whole thing feels like it just belongs together.
What is it specifically that you love about design?
It's when something that kind of becomes greater than the sum of its parts. You know, you've got some plants there and they're lovely, and there's some stone over there and that's beautiful. But that together, it's something more than each of those individual components. They're the spaces that I feel like I want to be in, and I think they're the spaces that other people want to be in as well. So I think that's what good design is all about.
Carolyn, I'm really excited about what you're going to bring to the show over the next couple of months. What are you going to focus on?
I really want to inspire people about maybe just taking a step back and thinking about the benefits of planning a space first, rather than just jumping in boots and all with all that enthusiasm, which is great, but just taking a step back and thinking about the planning. I really want people to feel inspired with where to start with a garden that might otherwise be overwhelming, or even just to consider a makeover in their own home garden. And that's what I'm hoping to achieve.
It's going to be great. I can't wait.
Roses are one of the most popular plants in Australian gardens because they tolerate a wide range of conditions and soils and flower for up to 9 months of the year. However, all of that flowering requires a lot of nutrients. So, at this time of year, it's really important that you feed them. I'm using an organic pelletised fertiliser that's boosted with potash, which roses love. And you apply about a handful per square metre or a handful per rose. Once you've fed your roses, the next step is to mulch them. Mulching serves a number of purposes. It insulates the soil and keeps the roots of the plants happy. It helps to retain moisture within the soil, and it also stops any nitrogen in the fertiliser being lost to the atmosphere. As far as what mulch you use, it's really personal choice. Here, we've got a bark-based mulch, but you could also use a straw-based mulch. The important thing is to put the mulch on and then water it. But if you want to get good flowers in summer, it's important that you give them a good deep soak regularly. With a little bit of TLC, roses will perform well for months to come.
Looking back at this early landscape plan, it's hard to imagine just how far my garden has come in more than a decade since I first moved here. Originally, it was a house, a fence, and a weedy lawn. And the soil was like working with impoverished bitumen. I really had no idea what I'd let myself in for. It's been 9 months since we visited my garden, and I've been working hard on soil conditioning. It's taken twice as long as I thought, and it's been really hard work. But let's have a look at the results. Arriving in Brisbane, I realised a lot of work was needed. It looked rather like an abandoned soccer field. Over the years, this garden has appeared on a number of Gardening Australia stories, and many of you will have seen snapshots of the garden. The big picture when I started out was to create a house that runs on renewable power, a garden that feeds its household with fresh produce, and collects all the rainwater that falls on the site. And today, I'm going to show you how the garden fits together. I've divided the garden into glades. A glade is a clearing surrounded by vegetation, and I have several of these in my garden, and each serves a slightly different purpose. But when they're combined together, it gives an impression that my garden is much bigger than it really is. These glades are also divided and connected by permeable paths, gravel out front and bark in the back. And these lead from one glade to the next, and the illusion they create is that there's always something more to explore. The front garden is ornamental, and it has classic subtropical plants, structural plants like ferns, palms, bromeliads, pandanus and cycads. I've raised the garden beds so that even moisture-loving plants are protected from flooding rain. They like the extra drainage. But everything about my garden is holistic. And a lot of the flowering plants here attract wasps, and they are the parasites and the predators of pests in the back garden. Side areas between houses can be difficult to design. They can be narrow, and this is certainly windy. This is where I decided to create my nursery area. I didn't put a shade house in because my neighbour's trees provide a beautiful pattern of shade and sun that lends itself to a wide range of plants. My nursery is my engine room. It looks after the whole of my garden. I bring houseplants out for holidays, and I use this all year round for propagation. Plus, this is a throughway, so if I have a large delivery of bulk materials for the back garden, this is the way it comes through. I have a lawn for two reasons. The first one is I used to have a dog, and this was our activity space. The other reason was to demonstrate that organic management of turf can be an environmental benefit. The soil here is compost-rich. Earthworms dig, drain and aerate the soil, and they cycle the nutrients. I've raised the mowing strips so that if we do get heavy rain, it all gets collected. Nothing runs off. It waters the soil deeply. I've also used this space as an opportunity to grow a boomerang bed filled with flowers that bring beneficial insects like pollinators into my food garden. Probably the most familiar part of my garden is here, where I grow my food. I've got 8 10-square-metre garden beds, and I practice crop rotation. I've never got less than 100 different things on my menu, and in a good season, up to 175. Now, the final glade is my property boundary, and along that I have 32 different types of fruit tree planted. Put all those things together, and I'm pretty much self-sufficient in food. And that's what I love about this garden. It's a living example of the ways in which the different parts of a garden are connected, and how a suburban block like this can be attractive, productive, and hopefully the inspiration for many more Gardening Australia stories to come.
Earlier on, I visited Peter Hosler in his inspiring garden. Well, now I'm back to find out some great tips on how easy it is to propagate your very own clivias.
Well, there are basically two ways, Jane. One is from an offset from the plant. So as we can see here, this is a relatively young plant, but it's already sending up an offset there, which just comes via a shoot, let's say, from the parent plant, and there's another one coming there. Now, they will be exact copies of the parent plant in terms of the form and the colour.
So another way of propagating is by the seed?
Yes, indeed. So, and the thing to bear in mind with seeds is it's like children. much as you might like them to be exactly like you, or you might not, they'll be hugely different in many cases.
Yeah, it's that variation that you're going to get because of the seed production.
Yes, exactly.
So how does one go about it? Because you hear it all the time. I've got these red things on my clivia bush, and what do I do with them?
Yes, Well, you simply take these. So these will ripen. Generally, it's when they change colour from green to red or yellow. That'll be anywhere between 6 and 12 months after they've flowered. You'll feel if they're nice and soft. That's why it's important to wait till the colour change. It's soft, easy to pull apart, and you can see here the seeds. So they're a lovely.
It's quite pulpy inside, isn't it?
Yes, very pulpy. What I would normally do is now take that, rinse it in lukewarm water, add just a drop of dishwashing liquid, and then I would leave them on a paper towel in a dish for several days. So when we come to planting them up, I just use a small pot like this, Jane. You don't want a big mass of soil because it's hard to keep warm. And if you can see the growing point, this one, it's not readily evident, but if you can see it, push it roughly pointing down. Simple as this, just put them in like that.
And you've just put them into some seed-raising mix?
Yes, this is just a seed-raising mix or just a good quality potting mix. Then I add a mix which has got a little bit more sand in, and I'll literally just cover them.
To cover them up.
Just to hold them down a bit. Then you make sure you tag them up with whatever the cross is, and then just a simple water like that.
It'll only take a month or so before they've germinated, and then you'll be well on your way to enjoying the mesmerisingly colourful world of clivias.
My name's Adam Shipp. I work at Gardeningaus Australia in Canberra, and I'm the Indigenous Engagement and Training Officer. So my father's a Wiradjuri man from New South Wales, from the Dubbo region. Came to Canberra when he was about 16, looking for work. That's where he met my mother. My mother is a Welsh woman from the UK. So my parents play a large role in my life and influence. My father being a proud Wiradjuri man, instilling that in me, the pride in who we are and our identity and our culture. I'm really passionate about bush tucker, bush medicine, plants. We're getting some cuttings of the native raspberry. Obviously the fruit is really good for you nutritionally, and the leaves can be brewed into tea. My interest really sparked when I started a traineeship in Parks and Conservation Service, working with a lot of the Ngunnawal elders and working with a lot of Aboriginal rangers, but also non-Indigenous people who had a passion about plants. That's where my sort of passion started to kick in. So this is Acacia melanoxylon blackwood wattle. So I'm grabbing the leaves, rolling it up into a ball, and this is a very important part. You need to sort of break the cells in the leaves a little bit. Once we do that, we get the water, and you can already see it's starting to set up. You start to get soap. This is native indigo, and this is a really cool one. So this is one that we use for fishing. So we grab the leaves, the roots, we crush them up. We find a water hole that's, hasn't got any running currents in it. Throw it in there, and it deoxygenates the water. It stuns the fish, and then the fish are a lot easier to catch, and it works quite well. And obviously, when you tell kids, they're just really, really keen to grab some and go down to the river and try it out. I work with Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander kids of high school and college age, actually taking them out on country and learning some of the things that I'd learnt as a trainee. These are things like visiting sites of cultural significance around the ACT, looking at ants' nests and being able to, look at what's happening in terms of our climate and the seasons. And then, as you can see with this nest now, they're starting to bring in a lot of the darker stone and twigs and different things like that. So they're preparing already for the cold winter ahead. This is the flax lily. You can see that in the book there's some lovely little fruit that comes up just on these parts here, and obviously they've already fruited.
Like to learn a lot more about my people, the people from this area, the Ngunnawal people, and just my connections.
I wanted to be an electrician, but I'm actually starting to really like this here. Walking around the bush, learning about all the plants and that.
What I love about this program is you get to meet new friends, go places where you've never been before, discover new things, new plans.
Working with a nursery just outside my office is something that I love because I can come out here, I can look at the plants. I just love having it all here, having it on my doorstep. This is the yam daisy, lots of carbohydrates, good energy, has inulin, so it helps to regulate blood sugar. Tastes a lot like sweet potato. In Wiradjuri, it's Murnong. Fields and fields of this would have been grown in traditional times because it was a very important vegetable. Hello, boys and girls.
Good morning, Adam. Good morning, Adam. Good morning, Adam.
Working with preschool-aged kids is to, I guess, build their knowledge from a young age about Aboriginal culture, and not only knowledge, but build a bit of respect. And Aboriginal people have been collecting and eating that seed for a very long time, thousands of years. It's a very good food. Can we all say chocolate lily?
Chocolate lily.
Very good. You love chocolate too?
I love chocolate.
Yeah, so this one is our bulbine lily. I also call it a native onion. Has leaves like that. Have you seen an onion before? Let's head out to the garden. Good.
It's a little bit tricky, isn't it?
Very well done. Now let's push all that soil over. Can you push all the soil? Push it over. Tuck it in, very good, and then give it a good pat down. Pat, pat, pat. Very good, thank you very much. Done very well. You know, just outside my doorstep at Greening Australia here, we have a creek, and it's now a sort of a stormwater drain, but within that, there are some very significant traditional plants. One in particular is the kumbungi, used for many different uses. You know, so I really think that's my sort of path. Continue to learn, care for country, but also continue to pass on knowledge and culture and work with our younger people. That's really what I'm passionate about, and I hope to continue to do.
What a great story to finish on. And next week, from the 2nd to the 9th of July, is NAIDOC Week, a chance to celebrate Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander history, culture and achievements. Why not get out to an event in your local area? Jump on our website and follow the links. I'll see you next week.
You know water gardens are a fantastic complement to any home. So I'm going to show you how to create a most beautiful water feature by arranging aquatic plants in a large pot.
Number 27 in this pleasant street in the Perth suburb of Wembley is rather greener than its neighbours. So much so that one impressed passerby likened the effect to a Persian carpet.
People are always asking me, what should I plant to attract the bees? So I'm down at my local nursery to share with you a few plants that you can grow to help get your patch buzzing.